particularly, we've lost a man in our movement here a while back, and man, that hit home. And recently, we had another man whose wife committed suicide. And you looked at the situation and you wondered, how could that happen? But then when I reflect on my own life, it's like, oh, I know exactly how that could happen.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. So today we are going to take the show in a slightly different direction. We have three amazing guests here. The topic today, as you've probably guessed, given the fact you've clicked on this, is suicide, which frankly is very close to all of us. For myself, I unfortunately have had 3 cousins. I'm trying to think if it's more, which is crazy. I can't even believe I'm thinking that, but 3 cousins that have committed suicide. One of them being a woman, a mother, left her 2 young boys behind, which is even rarer. But you wanted to bring this up. Do you want to share why?
Yeah, actually, I did. I wanted to, and if I'm being completely honest with myself, it's why I'm here. TPM saved my life. I've been doing a lot of work. I've come to a really good place in my life. But not too long ago, I found my 16-year-old daughter in the corner of her room, shaking, holding her puppy after a tremendous domestic dispute. No physical activity in the dispute, but some things that were said and the tone and the level of volume that were said really, really upset my daughter. And at 16, it's not something that I couldn't live with. And as my daughter and my wife exited our home and we're on a road trip somewhere, suicide came into my mind. Problem is, it didn't just come into my mind. I actually got the gun out of the closet. I loaded the clip and I had him sitting there. And it was out of fear. It was out of fear of being alone. And, you know, so many of us have used that as a threat in our relationships. And I didn't even realize I was doing it over the years. Subconsciously, I was probably saying it, but I wouldn't recognize it because previous to that, 8 years ago, my best friend committed suicide. And to this day, I still am upset with him. I've found a way to forgive him for it. But the things I said about him when he did that after the fact just didn't sit well with me either. And the fact that I found myself there in that moment. A lot of us go through a lot of tough things, but that's not the answer. You know, and thank God I picked the phone up. Arthur, I mean, not only did you and TPM save my life, but you did that. I was 14 minutes late to our phone call, but you waited. And I don't know if I would have gotten much further past that if you hadn't, but I fear for you. You and I had that conversation on one of our retreats, you know.
Yeah.
You keep me up at night.
And
it scares me.
Well,
so
I'll share my story. I mean, why not? So one of my mentors told me a long time ago that, you know, your friends are going to start dying when you're 40. Don't be one of them. And I took that as, get in shape. You know, don't be fat. You know, take care of your heart, take care of your health. But what he was referring to was that suicide is the number 1 killer in men our age. And my life, I've struggled with depression, suicidal tendencies, things like that. And about a year and a month ago-ish, that part of me died. That part of me died in a culmination of just a lot of work, a lot of emotional struggles, and a breakthrough. And I can proudly, honestly look before you today in the eye and say I haven't had a suicidal thought in over a year. And I think that's because I finally can look in the mirror and tell you that I love myself. And a lot of men, I don't know if it's out of pride or out of shame, but they don't have that. I don't know if it's reflecting on the previous episode we were talking about the mask they wear. They got to keep up that mask for so long that when they take it off, they don't know who they truly are. When I took it off, I finally realized I'm a good dude. I deserve to live. I deserve to be happy. I deserve to be loved. And I deserve to enjoy this wonderful life I've built. So why in God's name would I ever, think about doing that? And everyone always says, oh, that's the most selfish thing you could do. Why would you do that to your kids? Well, guess what? You shouldn't want to just live for your kids. You shouldn't want to just live for your wife. You should want to live for yourself and to live out for me, the true intention that God put me on this earth to be. So for me, that part of me is gone, but I'm well aware of it. And now I have a lot of empathy towards others towards it. Particularly, we've lost a man in our movement here a while back. And man, that hit home. And recently, we had another man whose wife committed suicide. And you looked at the situation and you wondered, how could that happen? But then when I reflect on my own life, it's like, oh, I know exactly how that could happen.
So how does it happen? Let's dive into that, because of the guys listening to this who are in this spot. And I think, us talking about, don't just live for your kids or your wife, live for yourself. They're just not going to get that.
Right.
It's going to be too dark.
Yeah.
It's going to be probably a bit hopeless.
Yeah.
It might even be guys that have been listening to the show for months, for years.
Yeah.
And just haven't seen any traction for whatever reason. So let's speak to the guys in that place, because the reality is some of the guys in that place are guys that will be walking into the boardroom tomorrow.
Yeah.
Running companies.
Yeah.
Leading companies.
Yeah.
And no one will have a clue.
Yeah.
This is how they feel and what they're considering.
Yeah.
So what is that guy going through?
Always feeling like, one, I would never be enough if, the world saw me for who I truly was. And two,
by the way, you don't need to talk about this if you don't want.
No. I'm open to it, because if it helps save one life, to me, it's worth it, right? I got nothing to prove, nothing to gain. I know Arthur has his own experience. I mean, it's in his book. But the fact of the matter, I think you're lying to yourself if you haven't struggled as a man at some point in life, wondering if the world will be better without you. For me, I finally came to the realization that my problems can be used to make me stronger. And that...
But let's not talk about the realization yet, because again, I just want to keep bringing it back to this guy.
Right.
Not that it isn't important, because I think the realization is.
Yeah.
But again, this person who's in this spot has got all the people in his ear, giving him all the advice and telling him how great he is, and has all the reasons to live.
Right.
Materialistically, on paper.
Right.
Yet the story in his head and where he is at is very different to that. I think one of the biggest things, transparently, I've never felt that way. I felt down and very insecure at times. But I've worked with a lot of men that have, and I've been around it a lot, be it within my family or otherwise. I think one of the biggest factors from what I hear is shame.
Yeah.
I think it's important to differentiate between guilt and shame. Obviously, guilt is something I did was wrong. Shame is I am wrong. So whether it's how you've been treating your wife, how you've been treating your daughter, and it's a cycle, and it's repeating the pattern, and you're making promises, and you're trying your best, but no matter how much willpower you muster up, you just break them again and again and again, and then you're up hurting the people you love again and again and again. That's the story of shame, right? I'm wrong. I'm bad. There is something inherently wrong with me. No matter how much willpower I try and apply to this, no matter how much I intend to love them with everything I've got, I just can't seem to make that work. There must be something wrong with me.
Yeah.
I think that's a piece of it, shame. I think another piece is the shame around losing everything.
Yeah.
Like for some guys, they are so that not only do they marry their wife, they can often marry the image that is portrayed by them being with their wife.
Right.
And they're married to the image. They're married to projecting a certain persona in the community of who they are. And they're so obsessed with keeping up that appearance and that facade because they believe that's the thing that gives them the significance and the connection, and that's why people like them and whatever it may be, that when that gets threatened and that might get taken away from them, divorce, separation, whatever, that story of what will they think of me? I'm going to lose it all. It still ties back to shame.
Yeah.
I am wrong. I am bad. There is something wrong with me. Right? I'm going to be outcasted. I'm going to lose everybody. I'm going to be on my own.
The world's going
Right.
to see me
Yeah.
for my flaws, not my.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was slightly different for me because it wasn't about that. I got to that stage through illness, right? Which led me to be isolated. Okay, which I think a lot of guys feel isolated.
I do 100% agree, yeah.
And for me, it wasn't about I was going to let people down. It was, for me, it was like, I can't go on, right? Because in my mind, I'd exhausted all the possibilities of being helped, right, with this illness that I picked up.
What was it?
I think I just wore my body down. You know, I was like 24. I was in a great career. It was the 80s, 90s, should I say? I'm aging myself here too unnecessarily.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, but no, we were working. They were typical working hard, playing hard. Financial industry. We'd work under. It was stressful during the day. We'd go out drinking, partying, the works, not eating properly. We did that for a year. Then I got food poisoning. Obviously, my system just gave out. But from that point on, for the next 8 months, I couldn't eat anything really because I'd be getting sick. Yeah, and so after various doctors, this, that, no one could sort me out. And obviously, I became isolated. Guys didn't want to hang out with me because I couldn't drink anymore. Got all of that. So now I'm stuck at home. Can't show up at work properly. Can't go out. Family was like a million miles away, and I wouldn't call them anyway because I'd worry too much. So in my case, I was isolated, right?
I think they're all isolated anyway, right?
But you land up there, yeah.
Yeah, emotionally, the shame.
Depression,
Absolutely.
mental health.
Well-
It all starts with isolation.
But where it got to was there's no hope, right? I'm helpless. There's nothing I can't do anything here. And that was a mindset that I'd got into, which most guys will get into at that stage. I can't see a way out. But then what happens is the pain and the suffering becomes too much for you to see any other option. All right.
The cure
That's-
hurts more than the pain of the disease.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I'd love an outcome of this episode to be is how can we inject some hope into the situation of the guy listening to this? Not by validating, not by telling him he can do this, not by all the stuff he's already heard. I don't know the answer. I'm
No
just
one
throwing
does.
it on the table.
The pressure of the pain is sometimes what pushes people to that edge. But at the end of the day, they're choosing to take a permanent
do we
solution to
inject
a
the
temporary
hope?
problem.
Yeah, I agree.
But the hope for me relies in love for yourself and love for if you're a believer,
I think you
your
glossed
creator.
over it very quickly, and I'd like to bring that back. It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yes.
And anybody out there, myself included, you, everybody listening, no matter how tough it feels right now, it truly is that. It's a temporary problem. Yeah. Everything's gray, everything's cloudy. There's a lot of noise going on right now. And you're feeling so distraught.
Right.
I know, I was there. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. There's no hope. I'm not going to be able to do this on my own.
Right.
But you are.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt this episode, but the reality is if you are watching or listening to this right now, then you are looking to better yourself. And I applaud you. You're one of my people. And I want to give you the opportunity of taking massive action. So if you haven't joined the activation method yet, it's our flagship program. Do what thousands of other businessmen just like you have done and take action. Be one of the 1%ers that actually does the work and takes action. there'll be a link in the description that'll take you right to a page that'll just give you more information. There is no obligation. Just go check it out and see if it's a good fit for you. All right, let's get back to this episode.
And there are TPMs there for you. Just pick the phone up. Just type an email. Because what you don't realize right now is there's so much help for you. You just got to reach out and grab it. Listen, for me, hindsight's always 20/20. I look back now at the place that you guys have brought me, this journey, phenomenal. My God, the amount of happiness that I get to share, not even just in TPM, but with my wife, my family, reconnecting with people that I've wronged over the years, and them going, wow, is it ever good to see? There's so much. Just take a pause for the cause, take a moment, get a little bit of clarity, and understand that there's no coming back. So you just take your mind and put it in a different place.
What would have had to have happened for you in order for you to have reached out for help sooner?
I would have had to have listened instead of being stubborn. And listen, for anybody to get to that place, they're a pretty strong-willed person. That's their natural. I'm no expert, trust me, but it takes a lot of strong will to ignore that little voice that you should be paying attention to and reach out sooner.
I think the key point, at least it was for me, was I thought there was no hope.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was like, well, there's no hope. So then what's the point of carrying on? And I think if there's one thing anyone out there can take on board is there is always one more step you can take. Even if you can't see it, there is one more step. As you said, there is light at the end of the tunnel. You can't see it. But there's always one more step that you can take. There's one more sense. There is hope, put it that way.
But if you ask somebody,
But you can't see it.
they'll show it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the story you're telling yourself, the story is never as bad as the reality.
Yes.
No, yeah.
You know, the story you're telling yourself in that situation, like I said, from working with thousands of men in similar spots, the story they're telling themselves, the reality is never as bad. Never as bad.
And if you're at rock bottom, where do you go from there? You can only go up. And as this sounds so cliche, but I always quote 50 Cent. Sunny days wouldn't be special if it wasn't for rain. Joy wouldn't feel good if it wasn't for pain. And I truly feel that in those moments of darkness, there can be light. And in that lightness, there can be greatness.
Yeah, I think you have to, this is going to sound a bit harsh, but I think to your point, you have to fight for the story a bit if you want to stay there. I mean, there are some biochemical things that can be going on and such, and I get it.
Right.
But I think you have to try. You have to try to ignore the good, because there will be good that's happening. There will be good that will be going on in your life somewhere.
Absolutely.
There will be. But to not see it, you have to really try hard to not see it. You have to really be trying to focus on what's wrong. And that whole idea of shame and the story you're telling yourself and the reality not being as bad, those that matter, what's the saying?
Those that matter mind.
Those
that don't matter.
I've forgotten it. What is it, Arthur?
Well, while you're thinking,
wait, what is it? What is it?
Those that mind.
Don't matter?
Don't matter.
And those...
That don't matter.
I screwed it up.
Colin, Google it real quick.
You can
Colin's on the saying it.
you can laugh through it, right? And so in the darkness, a lot of people think, oh, I'm at the end of my rope. I can't laugh. I can't see hope. I can't see anything because I'm so focused on ending it or whatever that darkness is. And for me, hitting that rock bottom and bouncing off that has been one of the most transformational parts of my life.
Yep.
And through that comes true greatness, true connection, true best version of yourself. And, you know, I've seen it happen with the guys. I've seen it happen with my friends that have been there, that they think all hope is lost. They think that, you know, their wife's gone, their kids are going to gone, they lost their job, the business is over, I have nothing to live for. But they always bounce back as long as they keep fighting for it. When you give up, it's it. It's a wrap. And I hate to say this, but everyone's going to forget about you pretty quick. And your problems are just going to go away with you. But if you stick around, you can change the world. And as bold and as emboldened as that sounds, you don't know what the rest of your story is going to be. You don't know whose life you can help save or change. And for me, eliminating that possibility, that idea, has been the most empowering thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, it's not a solution.
No,
It's not
it's
the
not.
way out.
No.
The saying is, those that matter don't mind, and those that mind don't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the point that you're telling yourself this story, there's a lot of shame around it,
Right.
or isolation, or all the stuff that goes with it, right? And that story is nowhere, the reality of that story is nowhere near as true as the shame that stacks with it. And the people that really care about you are going to care a hell of a lot. And there's so much pain that gets left behind when people exercise that option. And what I've heard a lot from being around this a lot is, why didn't they speak to me?
Yeah.
There's nothing that they could have said that would have made me turn my back on them.
Right.
Why didn't they just speak? Why
I didn't know.
I didn't know. And all of the confusion, the frustration, the sadness, the anger, and what model does it set as well? You know, I think of the amazing two young boys that are now, and this was 10 years ago now, that their mother committed suicide. They're now 19, I think, 19, 17 and 19. They were very young when this happened.
Wow.
I'd like to touch on that because two things. One is, so my best friend at the time was on a trip with me to Costa Rica just 2 months before. I knew he was going through tough times, but we were working through it together. And exactly what you said. Why didn't he just call me? Like, I would have, gotten a plane in a moment and held him. And it leaves so many people with unanswered questions. That's number one. So it's not the answer. Number two, we kind of skimmed over it, but you're not alone. It never gets talked publicly about it. But when I came into TPM, I realized I'm not the only one that has had these thoughts and gotten to that point. There's so many people, so many really strong men that get there and they take that step. They step backwards and look for help. They don't step forward and finish what they came out to do. They actually pause and think about it. You're not alone. I know society as a whole is like, oh, don't talk about it. All due respect, talk about it as much as you have to. If there's a slightest inclination, because you just said it, Tim, that triggered me. Like, had anybody that was having a challenge actually asked somebody who they love and is loving them, they'll help you through it. But you feel shamed that you even thought about it, then you're only hurting yourself and then the others around you.
You're caring too much about the opinions of people that really don't matter.
Exactly.
Like, what will they think of me if I say this? Or
Right.
what will they think of me if my wife leaves? Or what will they think of me? Like, I think for one of the guys, well, I'll speak in generalities actually, when people on the verge of losing everything, the business or otherwise, can be a trigger for it, right? Or when people have everything they ever wanted, it can be a trigger for it.
Yeah.
Right? And oftentimes, and I know I keep going back to shame, and I know it's not all about shame at all. I get it. Isolation, completely agree, and I think that's a massive one. But just going back to the shame piece, it's, again, those that matter don't mind. There is no shame that exists with the people closest to you.
Yeah.
If you were to just share, hey, I feel terrible, I feel awful, whatever it may be, despite just selling my business for 50 odd million, or despite having everything I wanted, or whatever the situation may be, all it takes is a conversation. Because what typically doesn't happen is the honesty. What I've seen is the men then bottle it up, retreat, withdraw, isolate themselves, tell themselves a story, and as a result, the shame then stacks.
And then a trigger.
While at the same time trying to keep up the appearances to everybody like everything's okay.
Right.
when in the first place, if they just said, hey, I'm struggling, everyone would say, I've got you. I've been there. And the reality is, when you say to somebody, I'm struggling, they'll more than likely say, I've been struggling too.
Yeah.
By you being honest, it gives them permission to do the same. And that's where the connection is. And really, a big piece of that, well, someone wanting to commit suicide as well, is the lack of connection.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit earlier on, someone in this position doesn't see the solutions, right? And that's the problem. They can't figure their way out, right? And the thing that you have to understand is that your current mindset, right? You can't sort the problems from your current mindset, okay? But that doesn't mean that there isn't a solution. It's just that you can't see it right now, okay? So just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. By reaching out to people and speaking to them, they can help elevate your awareness, your consciousness, so that you can see the solutions that are there that currently you're blinded by your situation, your depression, your whatever. So once again, I say to you, there is hope. There's always hope. There's always a next step. You just can't see it right now. So reach out to someone that can help you see it. And then you can take that first step to get out of the hole that you're in.
I'd encourage you, Arthur, that if you're listening to this show right now, a majority have already taken the first step because subconsciously you saw the title of the show and you thought, I want to hear what's going on. Your subconscious is telling you, I need to make that call. I need to ask for some help.
And it doesn't have to, this doesn't, honestly, this is bigger than TPM, right? This is
Anywhere in the world.
It doesn't have to be, pick up the phone, call TPM. They can help. And in the same breath,
Call someone.
Call someone.
Call anyone.
Yeah.
Mental
call anyone.
health.
Somebody you
Whoever.
know that somebody you know.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a family. It doesn't have to be a loved one. Somebody you know. And then
Will listen to you. Mental health in men there's this, again, shame around mental health in men because I think a lot of people have this persona or this expectation that, if I
Need to
say I
have
have
it
a
all
mental health
together.
problem, I'm weak. Oh, I should be able to be a man. I should be able to get over those things. My dad was strong. He didn't commit suicide. Blah, 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 blah. I could push through anything. All these stories that they keep telling themselves. And at the end of the day, like I always say, nothing changes if nothing changes. And if you're going to stay stuck in that rut and stay stuck with those thoughts that are just going to drown you, at someday treading water in the middle of the ocean, you're going to drown. You got to start swimming. You got to start getting, one way or the other. You got to choose a path and stick to it and see it through. Not for your kids, not for your wife, not for your company, but for yourself. And for me, as selfish as that sounds, those things finally disappeared when I said, you know what, enough's enough. I'm not living out my fullest life. I'm not living my fullest potential. I'm not going to let my past define my future anymore. I'm not going to let the things that I'm not in control of control me. I'm going to let that be. It is what is. It will not define what will be. And yeah, if anybody's proof that there's lightness on the other side of the darkness, it's me.
So let's wrap this up. One final piece of advice.
So a term we often use that the powerful man is lone wolfing it. That's when you go off on your own trying to solve your problems. Don't lone wolf it. You won't be able to solve your problems on your own. Find someone that cares about you, reach out to them, include other people, let them support you and help you. Lone wolfing it just doesn't work. So don't be a lone wolf.
I think starting everything with gratitude, being grateful for what you have and not reflecting upon what you don't have or what you'll lose is a huge step. I'm grateful for you, Tim Matthews. You saved my life that day, and I don't talk about it a lot. I'm not going to talk about it here, but I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for you. And I got an amazing family, amazing kids, amazing life, amazing wife. I love life, and I was that guy that came that close. There is another story to be written. You just got to want to write it.
I didn't realize how strong I was because I thought I was one of the strongest men in the world, business, family, until I had to recognize and reach out and ask for help. And that was the strongest thing I could have done for myself ever. And thank you for taking that call.
It's not as bad as you think.
Yeah.
It just isn't as bad as you think. It just isn't. Problem shared is a problem halved. It's not as bad as you think. Just share it. So, like Dougie Fresh always says, at the moment of insight, take massive action. We'll see you next time on The Powerful Man Show.